Welcome back everyone. In the previous video, we walked through on installing Visual Studio. So in this video, we'll build the UI for our YouTube video downloader. So let's open Visual Studio. Let's create a new project. So let's click on create a new project. Let's choose WinForm app with the .NET framework. Let's click next. Let's rename our project name. So let's call it YouTube video downloader. Let's change the path. And let's click on create. Okay, so here we have our base form. So first thing, let's change the form names. So let's rename it to main form. And now let's change the properties of the form. So firstly, let's change its border style to none, and let's change its start position to center screen. 800 by 450 looks good. And let's change its icon. So I'll leave the link for all the assets in the description box below. Let's rename the form text to YouTube video downloader. Okay, so here we have our base form. Now let's add in few things here. So firstly, let's add in a panel. So this is our custom title bar. Let's rename it to, let's say, top panel, and let's dock it to the top. Okay, and let's resize it. Let's change its height to 50, and let's change its background color to light gray. Now let's add in another panel. So this panel is for inputting the URL of our YouTube video. Let's simply name it input panel. And let's dock it to the top as well. And change its background color to white smoke. Okay, let's add in another panel. So this panel will give the details of the video, the URL that we have just inputted. So let's call it video details panel. And let's change its background to white smoke as well, and dock it to the top. Also, let's resize this input panel. Let's change its height to maybe 50. Okay, that is very small, so let's change it to 70. Looks good. And let's resize this video details panel as well. Let's change it to its height to 200. That's too much, so let's change to 150. Good. We'll change it if required later. Let's bring another panel. So this is for control buttons. So let's call it control panel. Background color to white smoke again. And dock it to the top. So let's change its height to maybe 70, or let's just keep it 60. Okay, so let's drag in another panel. So this is the last panel. So here will be our so let's say settings. So let's say settings panel. So for now we'll just have one settings that we'll choose the destination folder for saving our videos, and let's dock it to the top. Okay, let's actually do it to, okay, this should be fine. Okay, let's change its height to maybe 120. Okay, so all our panels are in place. Now let's add in buttons here. Let's say to close the application, to minimize the application, and then maybe an about button, and logo and the app name here. So let's add in one by one. So firstly, let's install a library to have our buttons with logos. So let's go to project and manage NuGet packages, and let's browse here for fontawesome.sharp. Let's click on this and click on install. Okay, so the library is installed now. Let's close this. Here you can see Font Awesome Sharp. Let's drag in an icon button. Let's remove its text. And let's change its style to flat. Rename the button. Let's say close button. And let's keep its border size to 0. Let's change its icon character. So this is for closing. So let's see. It is time circle, so let's search for T and search for time circle. Okay, so here we have it. Let's change its icon size to 35 and the button size to 25 by 25. Let's add in some padding to the top. Okay, so this looks good. Let's drag it to the right end and let's change its icon color. So since this is a close one, so I would give something like a red color. So let's choose Firebrick. We need 2 more buttons, so let's copy and paste it twice. Okay, so here we have 2 more buttons. Let's place beside these buttons and this one as well. Let's change this one's character. Let's change it to minimize one, so minus circle. So let's search for minus circle. Here Here we have it. Let's change its color to something greenish. I'll go with forest green. And we have an info button here, so search for info. Info circle. And let's change its color as well. I'll go with something gray. Okay, gray looks good. Actually, let's change it to something else. Light blue. Okay, let's change it to looks good. Now let's add in a picture box. So let's resize it to 25 by 25. And let's add in a picture. So before that, let's change the size mode to zoom and choose an image. Let's import logo.png. Let's click on OK. This looks good. Now let's add in a label. Let's rename it. Let's call it app logo label and change its text to YouTube video downloader. Change its font. This one looks good. Let's keep it in the center. Okay, now let's come to input panel. Let's add in a label. Also, let's rename this picture box to app logo picture box, and these buttons as well. This is about button, and this one is minimize button. So let's minimize button. So this one is for URL. So let's say URL label, and let's drag in a text box. Let's drag it till here. So let's change this property, font property. Change its text. And change this font as well. Okay, so let's rename this to URL text box. Now let's come to our video details panel. Let's grab in a picture box. So this is to show the thumbnail of our video. Let's make it 200 by 125 maybe. Let's rename this to video thumbnail picture box. Okay, let's copy this label and paste it here. So this would be our video title or video's name. So let's simply say video title, and we need another label. So this is for videos resolutions. Let's simply call it video resolutions label. Okay, we need another label now. So this is for the actual value. Firstly, let's rename these. Let's call it video title, and this one is resolutions. Let's change its boldness to false. Looks good. Now let's drag in a combo box. So this is for the drop down options. Let's go. Okay, so let's change its font properties. Let's rename this to resolutions combo box, and this one too, video title label. Okay, so now let's come into our control panel. So let me copy any of these buttons and paste it over here. Let's change its size to 50 by 50. Let's try to keep it at the center of this panel. Copy paste it and drag it to the end. Okay, so let's rename this. So this would be our settings toggle button. So I'll just simply call it settings button. And this one to download button. Let me change this icon character. So this would be settings. So search for cogs. And change its icon character to 50. Looks good. Let's change its color, something like gray or dark gray. Looks good. And let's change icon character to 50, icon size to 50, and choose the icon character. Let's download. Let's search for download. Here we have it. Let's change its icon color as well. Okay, so now let's add in another picture box. So this is for showing that the download is loading. So it would just be a GIF that would be running until the download is complete. So let's change its size to 50 by 50 as well. and let's put it beside our download button. Let's change its name to loading picture box. Let's choose its image. Change the size mode to zoom. Okay, so let's copy this button and paste it over here. Let's call it choose destination button. Let's change its icon character to folder open. And change the icon font to solid, and let's change its color as well to something yellowish. Go with this one. Now let's copy this label and here. Let's call it like save to label and change its text to save to. Let's copy paste this again and let's call it destination label. Remove the boldness and keep its size to 9. Okay, so let's rename this again. Path. Okay, so we need one more label. Copy and paste it over here. Let's move it to top and paste this label. Just copy this label below this. So this label would indicate the status of the text box. Let's say if we paste in some invalid URL, let's say something other than YouTube URL. So this would show up saying it's an invalid URL. So let's call it URL status label. Okay, so everything looks good. Let's add in the form for this about button. Let me go ahead and open Solution Explorer. Here, let's create a folder. Let's call it forms. So let's add in a new form. Let's choose form. Let's call it about form. And let's change its border style to none. And let's choose the icon. Let's resize this. Let's add in a label. Let's change its font. So this is our app logo label. Let's rename this to YouTube video downloader. Okay, let's resize this. Also, let's add in our logo. So let's drag in a picture box. Let's resize this to 30 by 30 and change its name to app logo picture box. Let's add in our picture. Change the size mode to zoom and choose the image. Let's bring it to center. Let's add in another label. So this would be with size 8 and boldness will be false. So this is our app version label 1.0. Let's drag it to the end. Let's copy paste this. Let's change its text. So let's call it made by. Made with. Let's add in an emoji, heart emoji by BS. Looks good. Now let's add in a button. Close this form. Let's change its style to flat and font properties as well. Let's change its fore color and the border color as well. Let's go to close. 100 by 30 by 5 should be fine. Let's call it close button. So here are our forms. So in the next video we'll add functionalities to spin up this form when about button is clicked, and functionalities for other control buttons as well.